got the man right here, Jack Nielsen, on the podcast with me today, talking about sport and what happened on the weekend. So, first of all, I want to say welcome to Empty Out the Clip, Jack. How you been? How was your weekend?
Oh, thanks. This is a big kia ora, bro. It's pretty topical at the moment, considering the Cook Island bubble's just open. But we're good, bro.
That's right.
It's been a
That's
good
right.
weekend. Some good sport on TV. There was a bit of footy and a bit of fighting. Whenever you get a bit of footy and a bit of fighting over the weekend, it's usually a good watch. And sometimes they sort of cross over, so it's even better. But we're well. How are you guys?
No, I'm good. Just been real busy with work and what I do part time. So yeah, it's been keeping me busy. Yeah. But yeah, you mentioned the Rarotonga bubble opening up. So you sound like you got some plans to take off, do a little weekend away and fun in the sun.
It's been a long time since I've been back to Club Raro. I think it's still open. I wouldn't mind going back there. It's some good memories. But no, the closest thing to that has been the Raro Donuts at the Avondale Flea Market. So probably had too many of them, especially over the school holidays. But no, I mean, I think it's a good thing for obviously the Cook Island economy and all the Cook Islanders over there. They want to see family, just like how we had the bubble with the Australians. So yeah, hopefully it means more money for them because a lot of the businesses again have gone under. So obviously they've got the subsidy, which is good. But there are businesses that have struggled, so good for them. Good for them to be open again. What about you?
Yeah.
You going to head up that way?
I wouldn't mind there. I mean, what I'm cautious of is and if there's a lockdown when you're overseas, you're screwed until the lockdown's over. So it's the same boat going to Australia and stuff like that. So
yeah, I think I saw on the news just this evening that obviously just when they're doing and the New Zealand government don't want, if there is a sudden lockdown, they don't want to have the Cook Island healthcare system be too suppressed, I guess, or damaged or anything like that. So yeah, maybe they'll still get Kiwis. I think she said so. They'll get Kiwis out if there is a lockdown, as opposed to just you're on your own. Be warned, you're on your own. As in, like in Australia, no, we'll bring those Kiwis back.
Yeah. Well, it's getting to winter now and it's getting cold. Yeah, so it might be a good idea to take off to the islands for some sun. But no, the reason why we're here, bro, is we're going to talk about the sports and the weekend. So first up, we're going to talk about the boxing. So on Sunday morning,
yes,
it was the Chisora and Parker fight.
Yes,
Joseph Parker fight.
Yep.
Now, you know what? I almost forgot about it. Like it took me to look on social media and see some posts saying "Go Parker, go Parker," and I was like, "Oh shit, that's right. The fight's on, and the fight's on soon, 9:00 or 9:30 to 10:00 around about those times." So I got there in time. So I booked it.
Yeah.
I booked it. Spent the money. I booked it, and then I watched the fight. But
did your heart drop when you got dropped? Like, I saw that over already. I was like watching it.
Yeah. So, man, how about you? Obviously, it took me by surprise the fight, but you were planning to watch it all weekend? Because I don't know why I've totally forgot about it.
To be honest with you, probably, I mean, there was a bit of coverage during the week in terms of, like, on the news and stuff. I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's coming on. And it's sort of, I was mindful that this was going to be a big weekend for boxing just because also Andrew Ruiz was fighting Chisora, so the two big Mexican heavyweights over in America. So, and again, there's a bit of a parallel there between Parker and Andy Ruiz and sort of Derek Chisora and Chris Arreola. So to be honest, I was probably more reminded of the other fight because I was quite keen to see that fight as well, just because Andrew Ruiz walking around with his 4-pack. Did you see him? Like, he's sort of this. He's quite large and very fast with his. Now, bro, you can see the body fat percentage is low enough to see ab muscle. That's what we all want, right? Especially these days. Body fat's too high. But yeah, it was good to see.
Yeah.
What do you think of the fight? I mean, the Parker fight. Like, I mean, people obviously split decision, and now so what's Parker now? He's the WBO Intercontinental Heavyweight Champion, something like that. So he's got a title, which is good. But I mean, obviously a split decision, a close fight. What did you think of actually watching the fight? Like, you sort of watched it through. What did you think?
Yeah, so the first thing I noticed about the whole event, firstly, was the no crowd and how different it was, the feel of the fight. having no crowd, it's sort of like it took a lot of the energy away, and it was kind of weird. So that was the first thing that I noticed.
Like watching
Yeah,
ours. Like, yeah.
yeah, and with the people on the side with the masks, they all had the masks on and stuff. So it kind of reminded you that COVID was still around,
That
you
was
know.
like
And
that. Yep.
yeah, and considering that we just had our 660 concert at Eden Park with a full house,
Oh yes, that looked
and
good.
we've got crowds at our rugby games, and so you kind of forget what's going on in the world, you know, and with the COVID thing. So seeing no crowds at the fight, and people on the sidelines wearing the masks, especially the shield masks, not the mask we normally wears, but the shield
Yeah.
over the face.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't go to
yeah,
lives. Yep.
yeah, and I thought, that's right, it is COVID. So yeah, so it was interesting because the first round of the fight, like I thought that Derek Chisora, he was real aggressive. He was really aggressive, and I think 8 seconds into the first round, he did catch him at the back of the head, which put Parker down to one knee.
Yep.
And it was funny because initially when I saw it, I had to go by what the commentators were saying, and they were saying that he tripped, so leg got caught in the bottom rope or something. But on the replay after that round, you see that wasn't the case. That Derek Chisora just hit him from the back. So I thought I thought that could have been a big factor if it was going to go down
Right.
to points at the end of the fight.
Yeah.
But yeah. So how'd you feel when you watched that first round?
Yeah.
Or yeah,
The heart sort of drops a bit, and it's like, oh no, here we go. But it's heavyweights, and that's the beauty of heavyweights. Like you never know. It could be 10 seconds, it could be 10 rounds. So I mean, to see Joseph go down, you're like, oh, okay, well, this could be interesting. But obviously, for the first half of that fight, and we all know with Derek Chisora, he's a pressure fighter, so he's going to keep coming forward. Yeah, he's going to try and make a cover up so he can work the body, and he worked Parker's body. I mean, definitely, he was scoring points there. But obviously, as the second half of the fight sort of came about, obviously Parker liked to pace himself, and he knew he was going to pick up points or pick up rounds in the second half of the fight, and that's pretty much what he did, right? And then obviously in the judges' eyes, that was enough to win the fight. A split decision, it's always going to go either way. I think there was only maybe the second judge that sort of the scores blew out a bit. There was that second judge, like 116 or 113, whatever it was. But that sort of highlights again, when it comes to judges or even refereeing, it's very subjective. And the other thing that I sort of noticed, and when we talk about sort of like the guys that lost their fights, and so in this case Chisora and Areola, man, for them, like, being respectful to their opponents, saying, oh yeah, they've won, all that sort of stuff. But like Chisora basically said, he got robbed again, after a bit like the Usyk fight where he fought Usyk, and he was the cruiserweight former champion. He definitely got outboxed there. But the probably the quote that stuck with me over the weekend was Chris Areola, and how his reaction to the fight was, the man said he got raped. The judges raped him. I was like, sorry. So one guy saying I got robbed, the other guy saying I got raped. I'm like, okay, that's mate, that's. But it just shows the amount of emotion and the emotional roller coaster, especially post fight. You just come out, you've lost, you feel like you've been robbed or raped. So of course that stuff's going to come out. The funny thing was he had his son there on his knee, and swearing away, and his son's like going, okay, little fun. But again, for the Parker Chisora fight, like, I guess obviously there's a lot of questions around what will happen next for both fighters. I mean, do you think they'll rematch? Will they rematch on the Fury AJ undercard maybe? I mean, I don't know. What do you reckon will happen especially with Parker? What do you think?
yeah. I thought it was more of a draw, that fight, and I think that garnered a rematch. Because you want those fights to be, for me, to be decisive. I wanted to Parker to really win, like, have no doubt about it, to win the fight, either knock him out or show. Yeah. And so, to me, if I could summarize the whole fight, to me it looked like here's Parker, who's real fit, who's obviously more fit than Chisora was, because he lasted the whole rounds, and you saw that in the mid to last rounds when Chisora was sort of like he was getting puffed, and he was getting fatigued. And so, and you could even hear it because I think the it was funny because the mics were next to the corners and you can hear.
Almost like they're wearing lapel mics.
Yeah, exactly. You can hear him breathe hard out,
Yeah.
and it just got more. His breathing got louder after every round. So I think, but again, Derek Chisora, he was just I thought he was aggressive throughout anyway, and so landed a lot of body shots. I think that was the plan
Yeah.
to get Joseph Parker in his body.
Yeah.
And then at the end, because also I thought that Joseph Parker lost some opportunities. I think that was the case of some commentators were saying, and I actually saw it at that last round, especially when Joseph Parker sort of had him on the ropes. I think he had a combination, but then he just stopped. He just stopped. Yeah, he stepped back and just stopped. So I thought that he had an opportunity there. They lost to. He lost the opportunity there to finish him off. So when I think about that 8-second knockdown in the beginning, and just the way Derek was throughout the whole fight,
Yep.
and the way, I thought it was a bit of a draw. I thought that score that tipped it was 111 to 118.
Oh, okay.
Which was pretty controversial, because did you notice at the end of the fight when they announced Joseph Parker the winner, Derek George just took off, and you could tell he was pissed off. He was really mad at the result, and he was talking about how he worked so hard, and the industry has got it in for him.
Oh, bro,
And
so
you know,
I was mad at. Well, I mean, again, like Chisora and Ariola, these are journeymen or guys that have been there a long time. Both guys are in their late 30s. And so you can understand that these are guys that have been close, but not close enough to becoming champion. Like they just haven't made that extra step, and they've had opportunities, right? Like they've had chances to fight the bigger names, and they've come up short. So obviously, when they're all of a sudden forced to sort of fight not the top guys, which in the heavyweight division right now obviously is Fury, which is AJ. I guess Deontay Wilder, depending on what he does. We've sort of then got Ruiz and Parker. If they're losing to these guys, then obviously there's no chance that they're going to be fighting with the bigger guys, the top guys. And even the same for Parker and Ruiz. Like I said before, they're on that path to redemption. They've made it to the top of the mountain. They're ex-world champions. They had their titles taken off them. They lost their fights, and now they're trying to get back up to try and touch those top fighters. So again, I'm looking to see sort of in the coming months what happens with this Fury and AJ. That's going to be at least 2 fights, right? So that'll probably maybe take out the rest of the year. What does Joseph Parker? Who does Andy Ruiz? Who do these guys fight next in the interim? Because obviously, if they fight again and then they lose, I mean, if they fought each other, well, then they'll cancel each other out. So do they fight other people? I would assume again. Like you said, they'll probably run it back. Maybe Parker will maybe fight Chisora again, and maybe who knows? Ruiz might take on Deontay Wilder. I don't know. That's sort of that's what I find about the heavyweight division right now. There's a lot of top heavyweights around. These guys that will bring eyeballs. And any business or any organization right now, you need good optics and you need people wanting to watch. Wanting to pay to watch, right? Because if no one wants to pay to watch, pay those subscriptions, no one's going to make any money, and everyone's going to go home empty-handed. So I mean, heavyweight boxing right now, it's kind of going back to like that golden era of heavyweight boxing when Holyfield and Tyson were around, and even those guys are still in the picture, right? You got Holyfield and Tyson, still wanting to fight and talking about fighting other people, and it's like, oh, okay, that's so. Boxers, even though they suffer from concussion and CTE, right, they're still around. They're still around, and then nostalgically we look at them and we're like, oh, wow, imagine Mike Tyson fighting Tyson Fury. Well, I'm pretty sure they would probably end quite quickly, but anyway, who knows? I guess we'll never see it. But I guess, I mean, boxing, probably the only other thing I wanted to mention about boxing right now is again, when you talk about journeymen like Chisora, like Ariola, who've been in the game a long time, and, they don't quite make it and they don't get the big money fights or whatever it is, or they're at the end of that sort of road. All of a sudden you have, this other type of boxer that's come through. And that's, in this case, guys like Jake Paul. The ultimate troll who comes in and he's calling out fights and he's making more money and, he's got he's got Dana White basically saying, "Hey, stop talking to my fighters. I want to get my lawyers involved." Diaz, Kamar Usman saying he wants to fight him, all that sort of stuff. And it's like, you can imagine that if you're a boxer of the other guys, the journeymans, all of a sudden seeing these YouTubers in this case come in and basically take all the limelight or the spotlight and the money, because that's where the money is. Like, well, what the hell have I been doing for the last 20, 30 years that I've dedicated to this sport in my life? And I've probably got brain damage, and I'm probably going to end up CTE later on in life. It's an interesting sort of way to look at things, because again, it's boxing as a combat sport is entertainment, like wrestling. You've got like any sort of product or service. You've sort of got the production side, so you've got to have good fighters, but you've also got the sales and marketing side. And so, how do you market different fighters? And right now, boxing's in a position where they've got a good supply of fighters, a good production line, and the way that they sell and market these fighters is the way that they're going to make the money. But again, the money's, to be fair, is being made by the YouTubers, which just shows the influence of social media and all that sort of stuff. I mean, what do you think? Also, I mean, what would you rather see? Would you rather see these guys that have been around a long time, or the top boxers fight, or would you be like a casual fan and you want to see someone like Jake Paul get knocked out by a real boxer?
Yeah, I'm sort of like a purist, so I wouldn't want to see a proper professional fighters box. But in saying that, though, do you put Paul Gallen in that same shelf as Jake Paul?
Paul Gallen's, I mean, just beat Lucas Brown. Even though Lucas was eating a sausage roll before the fight, it's probably not a good idea. Sausage rolls are the best things even after a fight. But I mean, Gal's done well to make that transition, just like Sonny did. He's fought. These four guys. I mean, Dewey's. I mean, I think they're trying to line him up with. Is it Justin Hooney, who's the Australian heavyweight champion? So I mean, he's pretty handy. So I mean, I think Gallen's a genuine fighter, and that it's not like he's taking on celebrities, he's taking on guys that when he fought Mark Hunter. I mean, Hunter could have put him away, but he didn't, right? He sort of, a bit like Joseph did, he let him continue on. I mean, I think Gal deserves to be there. He's made that transition. I think if he fights Justin Hooney, let's see how that fight goes, and that'll probably tell you whether he's that next run of fighters. So be it.
It's probably not unfair to compare Paul Gallen to Jake Paul, but coming back to the Joseph Parker fight, do you think that a lot of the way he fought in the weekend, because again, I wanted him to be decisive, to win decisively. I wanted him to beat him down, to knock him out. Yeah. And do you think that because of the way the fight happened, with going the full distance and coming to a split decision, I mean, Joseph Parker, he was real lucky to win that fight. I think he could have gone either way. He was real lucky to win that fight.
In the UK as well, right? So no hometown advantage. Sure.
And that too, the hometown advantages. But do you think that a lot of that had to do with what went on before he left New Zealand, with the whole thing with the court case, the name?
Yeah.
The name thing?
The name special. I mean, we've just seen Manu.
Yeah.
As of this recording, we've just had Manu Voxboy come out in regards to the methamphetamine supply charges that he's accused of allegedly. So, I mean, that can have an effect. I mean, obviously, at the same time, he changed trainers. So Andy Lee, sort of, and a recommendation from Tyson Fury. I think they're second cousins or something. These gypsy travelers, bro, they're everywhere. But obviously, he's sort of come in and taken over from Kevin Barry. And he comes from. I mean, he was Andy Lee. From what I remember, he was WBO welterweight champion. So he's someone that's actually been there and done that, and he's made that transition into being a trainer. I believe he was trained by Emmanuel Stewart, and we all remember Emmanuel Stewart, how he took Tommy Hearns and Lewis and even Klitschko. I mean, he used to train them. So, I mean, obviously he's come from he's worked with a lot of good trainers, and obviously he's trying to find his way because he's not that. I think he's not even. He's not maybe in his mid-30s, early 30s. So he's not that much older than Joseph, and obviously he's gone down the trainer route. He's used all that experience that he's gathered as a world champion, and then what he's gathered from the people that have trained him. I guess the big thing, I think I saw an interview where he said Andy wasn't going to change much in terms of trying to change Joseph's style. Like we know Joseph Parker of late, he does get tagged, he does get clipped, and so obviously maybe he is a bit hesitant to sort of go in there and rush in, whereas he'll sort of keep distance and sort of pick off guys from the outside. But I don't think Andy Lee sort of probably going to try and change much within this fight, but he definitely want him to use maybe a bit more footwork in terms of just getting out of danger, because that's the thing. It's nice to throw combinations, but if you stay there, you don't get off the center line, the other guy's going to punch you. So maybe that's one thing for Joseph Parker as he tries to get a world title shot again. Just hopefully that's what will happen for him. Working with a different trainer, with Andy Lee, that just different angles or different more footwork in terms of getting out of danger instead of getting clipped and tagged. Because it's not like he's quite agile. Like he's got speed. He's still got speed in his hands. But just as we age, as we don't. Our agility starts to go. The power, whatever power we have, goes. That's the last thing to go. Like Mark Hunt, right? That's the last thing to go. But the agility and the speed and the reaction time, that's what tends to go first. So if he's getting clipped like that as a 29-year-old, and he's still, he wants to stay in the game for a bit longer, he needs to change up, which I think is why it's been good that he's taken on a different trainer. There aren't too many of us that are fans of Kevin Barry, obviously, because of the way that he's treated the tour, and I think he used to look after Shane Cameron and even Masoy, Michelino Masoy. It was like when he was champion. So it's, but what do you think? What does Parker need to do to basically, make himself marketable in the picture to take on Fury or Joshua?
Yeah, I think he needs to. I think it was good that he won the fight, but I think he just needs to. I don't know, maybe because it was such a short turnaround. Him announcing he left. Yeah, junior fight to this fight, and to change his trainer was such a short turnaround. So he probably needs time to get in with Andy Lee and see what happens later on. But they have announced the next Friday. But I think he's got a lot of work to do if he wants to step up again. I think that if they do have a rematch with Chisora, it might not be the best thing. I don't know. Because unless he could win that decisively, unless he can knock him out, and then we can see the improvements.
Yeah.
I think we need to see the improvement. We need to see the improvement from the junior fight, and from this fight, the fight we saw in the weekend. So I think time will tell. I think I think the next fight is probably going to be the most important fight to see the progression of Joseph Parker, because we want him to get to where he was when he first came out. How he was before he lost his first fight. We need Joseph Parker to get back.
Yeah.
Get back there.
Life of a fighter. As you age, things start getting taken away from you. Like I said, speed, your reaction time, your agility. You start with a bit of power. That's the last thing to go. But especially first day. Obviously, it was interesting because I was chatting with a mate, Bob, one of my UK mates, and he was like, "Oh man, your Kiwis I think Joseph Parker's going to, he's going to get the knockout in the third round and all that sort of stuff." I said, "Well, you got to be, patriotic or correct or whatever they say, because you want to back your man." But I think even old Chisora, his smack talk's probably next level in terms of sort of building up a fight. But I guess again, that's part of the fight game. If you want eyeballs, you've got to create a bit of drama. Otherwise, it's softly, and nothing's sort of happening. People aren't going to watch, aren't going to care. So you've got to hype up the fight. But obviously, if you lose the fight, it's like, oh, well, so much for running your mouth out.
Yeah. Now I didn't watch the Ruiz fight. You did.
Kind of similar.
So what'd you get out of that?
Early Chris Ariello knocked Andy Ruiz down pretty early. But the big thing is, I think it was a unanimous decision in the end to Ruiz, and I think that's what pissed off Chris Ariello, because he's like, oh no, he didn't have any marks on his face, as he was saying in the post-fight press conference. But I guess for him, he felt like he was raped because the scorecards there was such a big gap. So for him, it's like, oh no, I'm like, I'll give credit. Like he beat me. He was faster, all that sort of stuff. But he didn't hurt me. So a lot. I guess for him, just the scorecard being a lot closer. But I guess again, in terms of these two fighters or those four particular fighters, the parallels between the younger fighters and the older fighters, the older fighters, I think they've used the term like gatekeepers. Gatekeeper was a term that I heard used to describe sort of like Derek Chisora or even Chris Ariel, because they're the older guys that are sort of on the way out and they need to make way for other guys to have other opportunities. So yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see, just like with who Parker fight next, whether they'll rematch, all that sort of stuff. Who does Andrew Ruiz take on next? I think even for Joseph Parker, they're talking about him fighting Usyk or Joe Joyce. Do you remember Joe Joyce? There was the British boxer from the Rio Olympics. He was a silver medalist.
Oh, yep.
He lost to the French guy. Yeah, he's a big guy as well. So I mean, like I said, there's all these characters, and there's a production line of heavyweight boxers that people are willing to watch. And if you have this stable of boxers that people are willing to watch, then you're gonna make money, and people are gonna get paid and be happy and all that, and give the world entertainment. Because like you said, we get to watch 660 at Eden Park, and the rest of the world's still in lockdown and all that sort of stuff. So.
I haven't heard much about what's going on in America with Dante Wilder. Have you heard much over there? Or?
I think for him, he's again another on the road to redemption. Wanted to come back and fight again. So I guess he's sort of in the background, sort of biding his time. I mean, yeah, I'm not too sure as well. Hence the reason why when I heard that the Andy Ruiz Cristiano Ariola fight was happening, I was like, oh, cool. We got to see what happens here. And does the winner then fight Deontay Wilder? Does Deontay Wilder use one of those guys as a warm-up fight to try and fight maybe the winner eventually of Fury and Joshua again? Who knows? It's like I said, it's lots of potential storylines there. We like our storylines, don't we? So yeah.
Dylan White is a guy that I think that Joseph Parker should aim for to get his revenge on. To knock that guy out.
Yeah, well,
and use that guy as a stepping stone to where he wants to be. But all in due course, I guess. All in due course.
Yeah, redemption to beat him. Or if Parker wants to beat him and then face AJ again and beat him, I mean that's. I think only Tyson Fury is the only unbeaten heavyweight, right? I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah.
He's the only one.
Yeah. If you include the draw.
Right? So it's like, okay, I'll draw. Okay, well, there you go. So it's like, I mean, everyone else has lost. Deontay's lost. Parker's lost. So Andrew Ruiz lost. So I was like, okay, well then, I guess if you don't have, when you don't have that hanging over your head, like, it's like, yep, I've lost. How do I make my way back? And we remember, like, in terms, especially for boxing, we remember the guys that fell and then came back. Ali was the greatest because he kept coming back. He came back too many times, which eventually led to him getting Parkinson's. But he lost and he'd come back. He would lose and he would come back. And those are the people that are remembered. And yet we know Floyd Mayweather. He's 51-0 or whatever it is. Yep, okay, he's won. He's perfect and unbeaten. But it's like, well, no, you remember those guys, but you also remember the guys that overcome something and overcome and build a bit of resilience. That's a good lesson probably for all of us. We all want to find ways to overcome things and build resilience. Well, losing now and then, is a good way to do it. So, because you either win or you learn, I think is a phrase they say. So, yeah, why not?